The maternity ward at St. Jude's Mercy Hospital is supposed to be a place of joy, of new beginnings. But for Emily Anderson, it became a courtroom where her entire life was put on trial. She lay in the hospital bed, 34 weeks pregnant, and fighting for her health when the door opened. It wasn't her husband, Michael. It was Camilla, the other woman, the mistress. She walked in, carrying a storm of accusations, ready to tear Emily's world apart. But she, and everyone else in that room, had no idea about the secret the doctor was about to reveal. A truth so explosive it would expose whose baby it really was. The private room on the maternity wing of St. Jude's Mercy Hospital was expensive, sterile, and lonely. It was the best room money could buy, a fact Michael Anderson had made sure to mention 3 times. It had a sweeping view of the city, but the reinforced glass muted the sounds of life from the streets below, leaving Emily Anderson in an unsettling antiseptic silence. The only sounds were the rhythmic, gentle beep of her fetal heart monitor and the huff sigh of the blood pressure cuff inflating around her arm every 15 minutes. Emily was 34 weeks pregnant, and she was terrified. She had been admitted 2 days prior for severe preeclampsia. Her blood pressure was a ticking time bomb, and Dr. Lena Hansen, a woman with a reputation for being the best and most terrifyingly direct OB-GYN in the state, had been clear. Your body is treating this pregnancy as an invader, Emily. Our job is to keep you and this baby safe. But right now, you are both in a high-risk category. No stress, no excitement. Just rest. Rest. It was a bitter joke. How could she rest when her life felt like it was fracturing? Her husband, Michael Anderson, was a titan of private equity. He was the kind of man who graced the covers of business magazines, whose charm was a weapon, and whose ambition was a force of nature. They lived in a stunning, minimalist mansion in Greenwich, Connecticut, a house that felt more like an art gallery than a home. For 7 years, that house had been haunted by one thing: silence. The silence of an empty nursery. Their journey to this pregnancy had been a 7-year war against infertility. Or so Emily believed. She had endured countless tests, charted her temperature with obsessive precision, and cried through more negative pregnancy tests than she could count. She'd been probed and analyzed by their first fertility doctor, a soft-spoken man named Dr. Matthews, who eventually shrugged and labeled them with unexplained infertility. It was Michael who had finally, impatiently, declared they were moving on. He called in a favor and got them an appointment with the legendary Dr. Hansen at St. Jude's. He was the one who pushed for the most aggressive, most expensive IVF treatments. "Whatever it takes, Emily," he'd said, grasping her hand in the car, his knuckles white. "I need this. We need this." Emily had believed his "we" included her. She'd believed his intensity was shared desperation. Now she wasn't so sure. For the last 6 months, as her belly grew, a chasm had opened between them. Michael was always working late. He was closing a massive deal. His phone, once left carelessly on the nightstand, was now perpetually face down or in his pocket. He took calls in his study with the door closed. A month ago, she'd seen the text. She'd been bringing him a coffee, and his laptop screen was mirrored to his phone. A message flashed at the top of the screen. "Camilla, headed to the apartment. Don't be late. I need you." Emily's hand had trembled, spilling hot coffee on her wrist. She didn't even feel the burn. "Who is Camilla?" she asked, her voice dangerously quiet. Michael didn't flinch. He was a master of control. He closed the laptop slowly. "She's a new associate at the firm. Very young, very brilliant, and very needy. She's having a hard time adjusting. I'm mentoring her." "The apartment," What apartment? The firm keeps a corporate condo in the city for high-level associates, Emily. You know this. He stood up, walked over, and wiped the spilled coffee from her hand with his thumb, his touch cold. Are you accusing me of something? Now? When you're pregnant with our child? My God, Emily. The hormones are making you paranoid. You need to calm down. It's not good for the baby. He had gaslit her. He'd made her feel guilty, as if her suspicion was the betrayal, not his actions. And like a fool, she had let him. She had chosen to believe the lie because the truth was too terrifying to contemplate. Now, lying in the hospital bed, the lie was all she could think about. Michael was in a meeting. He'd said he would be there by 3 p.m. It was 4:15 p.m. The blood pressure cuff tightened, and Emily winced. The machine beeped, a sharp, alarming sound this time. A moment later, Nurse Patel, a kind woman with warm eyes, bustled in. "Pressure's up again, sweetie. 155/100. Dr. Hanson won't like that." "I'm trying to relax," Emily whispered, tears welling. "Where's that husband of yours? His presence might help," Nurse Patel said, adjusting the IV drip. "He's in a meeting," Emily said, and the shame of the lie burned her throat. "Well, you just focus on you and that little boy in there. No more stress. Doctor's orders." The nurse left, and the silence returned, heavier this time. Emily closed her eyes, trying to picture the nursery, the blue-painted walls, the tiny mobile of Wales. She tried to focus on the small, fluttering kicks inside her. That's when the door to her room opened. Emily's heart leaped, thinking it was Michael. "Finally, you're—" The words died in her throat. It wasn't Michael. It wasn't a doctor or a nurse. It was a woman. Tall, impossibly beautiful, and dressed in a blood-red blazer and tight black pants. She looked like she had just stepped out of a boardroom or a fashion shoot. Her blonde hair was slicked back, and her eyes, cold and assessing, scanned the room before landing on Emily. She smiled, a slow, predatory curving of her lips. "You must be Emily," the woman said, her voice smooth as silk. "I'm Camilla Benson. I think it's time we finally talked." Emily's first coherent thought was that the woman was lying. This couldn't be the needy associate. This woman didn't look like she had been needy a day in her life. She moved with the predatory confidence of a panther. She wasn't just in the room. She owned it. I think you have the wrong room," Emily stammered, her hand instinctively going to her swollen belly. The fetal heart monitor's steady beep, beep, beep suddenly felt frantically loud. Camilla Benson laughed, a short, sharp sound that held no humor. "Oh no, room 712, St. Jude's Mercy, maternity. Patient, Emily Anderson. Believe me, I did my research." She walked further into the room, uninvited, and perched on the edge of the visitor's chair, crossing her long legs. She smelled of expensive perfume, something musky and floral that cut through the sterile air. You're Camilla," Emily said, the name tasting like poison. "Michael's associate." "Associate? Is that really what he told you?" Camilla examined her perfect ruby-red nails. "That's adorable and pathetic. No, Emily, I'm not his associate. I'm not his mentee. I'm his partner." The blood pressure cuff on Emily's arm, forgotten, began its automatic inflation. Huff sigh, huff sigh. "Partner? In the firm?" Emily whispered, knowing she was grasping at straws. "In life, sweetheart," Camilla said, finally looking up, her blue eyes devoid of any pity. "In his bed. In his heart. The place you used to be. We've been together for 18 months, since before you started your precious IVF." 18 months? Emily did the math, the clinic, the injections, the endless, tearful appointments. The unexplained infertility. All of it. The entire time he had been with this woman. A cold, dreadful nausea rolled over her, far worse than any morning sickness. "You're lying," Emily said, but her voice was weak, trembling. "Am I?" Camilla reached into her designer handbag and pulled out her phone. She swiped, then turned the screen toward Emily. The pictures were undeniable. Michael, laughing at a restaurant Emily had wanted to go to for their anniversary, with Camilla's hand on his. Michael, standing on a balcony overlooking the Eiffel Tower, kissing Camilla's temple. "His business trip to Paris last spring," Camilla narrated, her voice casual. "The one you couldn't go on because you were in the middle of a cycle. That's what he told me anyway. He said it was such a relief to be with someone who wasn't a walking, talking medical chart." Each word was a physical blow. Emily felt the air leave her lungs. Camilla swiped again. A picture of them at a gala, the same one Michael had claimed was men only. Camilla was in a slinky, silver dress, and Michael's hand was splayed possessively on her lower back. "He loves me, Emily. He's just trapped. He was too much of a coward to leave you while you were going through the treatments. He said it would look bad. And then, when you finally got pregnant, well, he's a man who values legacy. He wants his heir, but he doesn't want the mother." "Get out," Emily whispered, tears blurring her vision. The monitor on the wall let out a sharp, high-pitched alarm. Beep, beep, beep. Her pressure. It was skyrocketing. "Get out! Oh, I'm not going anywhere." "Not until we come to an arrangement," Camilla said, standing up and looming over the bed. "See, Michael promised me that as soon as the baby was born, he was done. He's filing for divorce. He's going to set you up, of course. You'll be the tragic, infertile wife he tried so hard to please. And I'll be the one who finally made him happy. We're going to raise that baby together, our baby." It's not your baby," Emily gasped, clutching her abdomen as a sharp pain, a tightening, seized her. "It's my baby, my son." "It's an Anderson, sweetie. That's all Michael cares about. The name, the bloodline. You were just you were the incubator. And now your job is almost done." "You're a monster," Emily panted, fumbling for the red call button by her pillow. "I'm a realist," Camilla corrected. "And I'm here to tell you to make it easy on yourself. Sign the papers when he gives them to you. Don't fight for custody. You won't win. Michael's lawyers will paint you as an unstable, hysterical, sick woman. Which, let's be honest." She gestured around the room. "You're already halfway there." Emily finally found the button and pressed it, holding it down with all her strength. The pain was worse now, a deep, terrifying cramp that wrapped around her back. "He'll never leave me," Emily said, trying to sound strong, but it came out as a sob. "He wanted this baby more than anything. He wanted a baby. You were just the vessel. He told me he can barely even stand to look at you anymore. He said you're—" The door flew open. It wasn't a nurse. It was Michael. He was holding a briefcase in one hand and a pathetic bouquet of wilted hospital flowers in the other. He stopped dead. His face, usually so composed, draining of all color. He looked from Emily, crying and clutching her stomach, to Camilla, standing over her like a vulture. "Michael!" Emily cried out, a sound of pure desolation. "Michael, darling," Camilla said, her voice dropping, becoming sultry and possessive. "You're late. I was just getting acquainted with Emily. We were just discussing our future, our family." Michael Anderson stood frozen in the doorway, a deer caught in the headlights of an oncoming truck. The flowers slipped from his grasp and hit the linoleum floor with a sad, dull thwack. He was a man who commanded boardrooms, who could dismantle a company's finances in an afternoon. But in this moment, he was utterly, pitifully paralyzed. His eyes darted between the two women, his pale, visibly ill wife, and his sharp, predatory mistress. "Camilla," he finally managed to say, his voice a low, strangled sound. What are you doing here? What am I doing here?" Camilla laughed, turning to him. "I'm doing what you were too cowardly to do. I'm handling the situation. I'm laying the groundwork for our life, Michael, the one you promised me." The high-pitched alarm from Emily's monitor was screaming now, a constant, piercing shriek. Beep! "Emily, baby, are you okay?" Michael rushed to the bedside, completely ignoring Camilla. He grabbed Emily's hand. It was ice cold. "What did she say to you?" "She's lying. She's obsessed with me. I told you she's unstable." This was his play, the gaslighting. He was trying to paint Camilla as the delusional other woman, the same way he had painted Emily as the paranoid, hormonal wife. He was trying to be the victim, the prize being fought over by two emotional women. But Camilla was not Emily. She was not a woman who would be quietly dismissed. "Unstable?" Camilla's voice was sharp, a whip crack in the tense room. "Obsessed? Is that what you call our trip to Paris? Is that what you call the lease you co-signed on my apartment? The one on the Upper East Side? Tell her, Michael. Tell her about our place. Tell her about the investment you made in my name." Emily's head snapped toward her husband. "Michael? What apartment?" "It's not... Emily, it's a corporate holding. It's complicated," Michael stammered, his eyes wide with panic. He was losing control. "Oh, it's very complicated," Camilla purred, stepping closer. "Tell her how complicated it was last night, Michael. When you left this hospital, where your sick wife was, and came straight to my bed. Tell her how you held me and said you couldn't stand the smell of this place. Tell her how you said you just needed to get through this, and then we'd be free." Emily made a sound, a deep, animalistic noise of pain. The sharp cramp she'd felt earlier returned, but this time it was a vice, squeezing her, stealing her breath. "Michael," she gasped. You were here." "I was," he said, his voice rising in desperation. "I was here until midnight. I talked to Dr. Hansen. Tell her, Emily, I was here." "You were," Emily confirmed, her voice dead. "And then you left. You said you had to get an early start." "And he did," Camilla finished for her. "An early start. With me." Michael's mask of civility finally shattered, his face contorted with a rage Emily had only seen him direct at subordinates. He turned on Camilla. "You crazy! Get out! Get out of here right now! You're harassing my wife. You're putting my child at risk." He lunged for her, grabbing her arm to drag her out of the room. Camilla yanked her arm back, her expression turning from smug to furious. "Your child? You mean your heir? The only thing you care about? Don't you dare touch me, Michael. You promised me. You said you were leaving her. You said you were just waiting for the surrogate to deliver." The word surrogate hung in the air, thick and poisonous. Emily felt it pierce her straight through the heart. This wasn't just an affair. This was a plan. A cold, calculated plan where she was not a wife, not a partner, but a vessel. "A surrogate," Emily whispered, the room spinning around her. "Yes," Camilla shrieked, her own composure cracking. "That's what you are. He's been lying to you. He's been lying to me. He told me we would be a family. He told me we would raise that baby. Tell her, Michael. Tell her the truth. Tell her you love me." "Shut up!" Michael roared, his face purple. Just shut up! It was in that moment, with the three of them locked in their triangle of lies and pain, that the door burst open. Nurse Patel was back, and she was not alone. Behind her was the formidable, unsmiling figure of Dr. Lena Hansen. Dr. Hansen took in the scene in less than a second. The screaming mistress, the apoplectic husband, and the patient, her patient, curled in a ball, her face as white as the sheets, the monitors beside her lit up with terrifying red numbers. What in God's name is going on here? Dr. Hansen's voice wasn't loud, but it cut through the yelling like a scalpel. Nurse Patel immediately rushed to Emily's side. "Doctor, her BP is 170/110 and climbing. She's having severe uterine contractions." "I see that, nurse," Dr. Hansen said, her eyes fixed on Michael and Camilla. "Security is on its way. You two," she pointed. "Out, now." Michael, seeing the doctor, immediately tried to regain his concerned husband persona. "Doctor, thank God. This woman," he gestured at Camilla. "She forced her way in here. She's a stalker. She's been harassing us. She's upsetting my wife." Camilla let out a sound of pure, disbelieving rage. "Stalker? You pathetic liar. Tell her who I am, Michael. Tell her I'm the one you've been sleeping with for 18 months. Dr. Hansen held up a hand. "I don't care who you are. I care that my patient's blood pressure is high enough to cause a stroke, and her placenta could be abrupting as we speak. You are a threat to her life, and the life of her child. Get out." "I am not leaving," Camilla said, crossing her arms, planting her feet. She was still convinced she held the power. "Not until he tells the truth. He owes me. He's been lying to both of us. He told me we were trying for a baby. He told me he wanted a family with me." This new piece of information landed in the room with a thud. Emily, through her haze of pain, looked at Michael. Trying for a baby? With her? The idea was insane. He was with her at the IVF clinic, and with Camilla at the apartment. "Camilla, that's enough!" Michael yelled, his panic turning to raw fury. He tried to shove her toward the door again. "Get out! You're killing my wife!" "Your wife?" Camilla shoved back, digging her heels in. "The woman you can't even stand to touch? The one you call frigid and empty? The one you said was so broken you had to find a way to get an heir? Is that what the IVF was, Michael? Your last-ditch effort to get a kid from the broken wife before you moved on to me? It was too much. The cruelty, the years of self-blame, the lies. It all crested in one agonizing wave. Emily let out a single, sharp cry, a sound that was not a word, just pure, unadulterated pain. It wasn't just emotional, it was physical. She arched her back, her hands clawing at the sheets. "It hurts!" she screamed, her voice cracking. "Dr. Hansen, it burns! Something is wrong!" "That's it!" Dr. Hansen roared. She hit the code button on the wall herself. "Nurse Patel, page the OR, now. Tell them we have a suspected placental abruption, severe preeclampsia. We're moving, now." To Michael and Camilla, she barked, "Security will remove you. You are done here." Two large security guards, a man and a woman, appeared in the doorway, their faces grim. "Ma'am," the male guard said to Camilla, "you need to come with us." Camilla looked at Michael, her face a mask of betrayal and hatred. You liar," she spat at him. "You used me." "Get her out," Michael bellowed, pointing at her as if he were the one wronged. As the guards took Camilla's arms, she locked eyes with Emily. The smugness was gone, replaced by a venom that was terrifying. "He'll never love you, you know," she hissed as she was dragged out. "And every time you look at that baby, you'll just be looking at the only thing keeping him tied to you. But he'll be thinking of me." "Wait!" Emily cried out, her voice desperate. "Michael, she said, you were trying for a baby. With her, too?" Michael paled, realizing his web of lies was collapsing on itself. Camilla, hearing this from the hallway, let out a final, triumphant shriek. "Yes, he was. But guess what, Emily? For all his talk, he couldn't even get me pregnant. Maybe he's shooting blanks. Maybe that baby you're carrying isn't even his." It was the final, desperate barb of a woman who had lost. A wild, cruel guess meant to inflict maximum damage. Emily froze. The pain, her fear, her anger, it all evaporated, replaced by a single, terrifying, impossible thought. "What? What did you say?" "I said maybe it's not his," Camilla screamed from down the hall. "A man who lies that much? How do you know who you slept with?" The insinuation was vile, absurd, but in the toxic air of that room, it landed. Emily's head swam. The monitors went frantic. Dr. Hansen looked at Michael, her eyes blazing with a cold, clinical fury Emily had never seen. "Mr. Anderson, you and I are going to have a talk. In the hallway, now. Nurse, get a gurney. We are moving." The hallway outside room 712 was a pocket of chaos. Down one end, the security guards were struggling with Camilla, who was now weeping with rage, her boardroom mask completely gone, revealing the desperate, humiliated woman beneath. Nurses and other patients peered out of their doors, drawn by the commotion. Dr. Hansen dragged Michael Anderson 10 feet from Emily's door and slammed her hand against the wall, stopping him. He was breathing heavily, his expensive suit rumpled, his face slick with sweat. He looked, for the first time since Emily had met him, like a small, terrified man. "What?" Dr. Hansen began, her voice a low, dangerous growl. "In the name of God did you do, Michael?" "Doctor, I can explain," he panted, trying to straighten his tie, a pathetic attempt to regain his lost authority. She's mentally unstable. She's been a problem at my firm. I've been trying to get a restraining order." Dr. Hansen cut him off with a slice of her hand. "Save it. Save that garbage for your lawyers. I don't care about your affair. I care about my patient. I have a woman in there on the verge of a full-blown seizure. Her placenta is, I am almost certain, detaching from her uterine wall because of the stress you just allowed into her room. That means her baby is being starved of oxygen right now." Michael's face went ashen. Is the baby? Is he? He's in danger, and so is she. And do you know why? Because of that final parting shot. That maybe the baby isn't even his line. "That's insane," Michael sputtered. "Of course it's my baby. We did IVF. It's ours." Dr. Hansen stared at him, her sharp blue eyes seeming to pierce right through his skull. She was silent for a long, agonizing moment. Michael's bluster faded, replaced by a dawning, sickening horror. He was starting to understand. You wouldn't," he whispered. "You can't. That's a HIPAA violation. That is a lawsuit, Doctor. I will ruin you. I will end your career." Dr. Hansen actually laughed. It was a cold, sharp, terrifying sound. "You will? You, Michael? The man who just allowed his mistress to physically endanger his wife and child? The man who, I am willing to bet, has been lying to everyone in his life for years. You think you have any leverage here?" She leaned in, her voice dropping so low only he could hear it. "My duty is to my patient. Your wife's life is in danger. The proximate cause of that danger is not her pre-eclampsia. It is you. It is the stress of your lies. That woman, your mistress, just planted a seed of doubt that is causing Emily's body to literally self-destruct. The only way I can save her, the only way I can de-escalate her condition enough to get her safely to the OR, is to remove that doubt, to remove the lie. Your lie is the disease, Michael. And I am about to administer the cure. Lena, please, he begged, using her first name, a desperate, intimate plea. Don't do this. It will destroy her. It will destroy us. Us? Dr. Hansen repeated the word, her lip curling in disgust. There is no us, Michael. You destroyed that. You built your entire marriage, this entire pregnancy, on a foundation of pure, narcissistic fraud. And you not only lied to your wife, you lied to that woman. She jerked her chin down the hall toward Camilla. You let her believe she could have a baby with you. You let her build her life on a fantasy. You are a black hole, Michael. You just suck everything in. A gurney, pushed by two orderlies, rattled past them and into Emily's room. Time's up, Dr. Hansen said, her face hardening back into a clinical mask. We are going back into that room. You are going to stand by your wife's side, and you are going to listen as I tell her the truth, the whole truth, because she deserves to know what and who she is fighting for. And then I am going to take her to surgery, and I am going to save her baby. Do you understand me? Michael Anderson looked completely broken. The titan of industry was gone. He could only nod, a single, jerky, terrified motion. Good, Dr. Hansen said. Now let's go. They re-entered the room. Emily was already being shifted from the bed to the gurney by Nurse Patel and the orderlies. She was panting, her eyes wide with terror, not just for the baby, but for the new, insidious doubt that had taken root. Dr. Hansen, she gasped. That woman, what she said, it's not true, is it? It's Michael's baby? Tell me it's Michael's baby. Michael, standing by the door, looked like he was going to be sick. Dr. Hansen walked to Emily's side and took her hand. Her voice, which had been so full of ice and steel in the hallway, was now impossibly gentle. Emily, I need you to listen to me very, very carefully, she said. We are going to the OR. We are going to deliver this baby. You are both going to be safe. But before we go, I have to tell you something. I have to tell you the truth. It is the only way to stop what's happening to your body. Emily looked past the doctor, to her husband. Michael? Michael couldn't meet her eyes. He just stared at the floor, his world in ashes around him. And in that moment, Emily knew. She knew, before the words were ever spoken, that her life was over. And it was just beginning. Emily, Dr. Hansen began, her grip on Emily's hand firm and grounding. The orderlies and Nurse Patel paused, sensing the weight of the moment. The room was thick with a terrible, sacred silence, broken only by the frantic beeps of the monitors. That woman, Camilla, she said something vile to hurt you, Dr. Hansen said, her voice clear and steady. She accused you of infidelity. She guessed, wildly, that this baby wasn't Michael's. Emily's eyes filled with fresh tears. It's not true. I would never. I know, Dr. Hansen said. She was lying. But, Emily, in the most technical, biological sense, she was correct. This baby is not Michael's. The beeps from the monitor seemed to slow. Emily's entire world, which had been spinning, came to a dead, cold stop. She stared at the doctor, uncomprehending. What do you mean? The IVF, we did. Michael, you were in the room. You gave your sample. She turned her head on the pillow, her eyes finding her husband. He was still by the door, frozen, a statue of shame. Michael, she whispered, her voice a fragile thread. What is she talking about? Michael, tell me. Michael squeezed his eyes shut. He couldn't speak. He couldn't even look at her. He can't tell you, Dr. Hansen said, her voice filled with a quiet, righteous anger. So I will. She turned her gaze to Michael, pinning him to the wall. "Mr. Anderson, you have the right to request I stop. This is your medical information. But if you do, I will have you forcibly removed by security as a threat to my patient's life. The choice is yours." Michael gave a tiny, defeated shake of his head. He said nothing. Dr. Hanson turned back to Emily. "When you and Michael came to my clinic 18 months ago, you did a full fertility workup. Both of you." "Yes," Emily whispered. "Dr. Matthews said. He said it was unexplained." "Dr. Matthews was wrong," Dr. Hanson stated. "Or he was lazy. It was not unexplained. It was, in fact, painfully clear. Emily, your tests came back perfect. Absolutely normal. You are healthy. You were always healthy." Emily's mind reeled. "But the years, the treatments," Michael said. He said we were the problem." "No, Emily," Dr. Hanson said, her voice gentle but unyielding. "You were never the problem. The problem was and is Michael." She let the words hang in the air. "Michael's tests," Dr. Hanson continued, "came back conclusive. He has a condition called congenital bilateral absence of the vas deferens, tied to a cystic fibrosis gene mutation. It's a condition he was born with. It means, Emily, that Michael is medically sterile. He produces no sperm. He has never produced sperm. He is, and has been his entire life, completely incapable of biologically fathering a child." The silence that followed was so profound, so absolute, it was as if the world had ended. Emily's breath hitched. She stared at Michael. The 7 years, the hormone shots she took, the invasive procedures she endured, the endless diets, the acupuncture, the blaming, her blaming herself, the nights she cried into her pillow, feeling like a failure, like a broken woman who couldn't give her husband the one thing he wanted. And he had known. All this time, he had known. "You knew?" she whispered, and the sound was so full of agony it made Nurse Patel flinch. Michael finally looked at her, his face a crumpled, tear-streaked mask of self-pity. "Emily, I was ashamed," he stammered, taking a step toward her. I couldn't be the man who was broken. I couldn't tell you. I thought it would make you leave me. So you let me believe I was the broken one?" Emily's voice was rising, a terrible cold rage replacing the pain. "You let me inject myself with needles? You let me put my body through hell for 7 years? You let me apologize to you when you were the one lying? We got the baby, didn't we?" he pleaded, as if this justified it. "I gave you the baby." "You didn't give me anything," Emily shrieked, her voice cracking. "Whose baby is it? Doctor, whose baby is in my body?" "It's your baby, Emily," Dr. Hanson said, her voice firm. "Genetically, it is 100% yours. After we got Michael's results, he and I had a private consultation. He convinced me that he would tell you, but that he wanted to do it in his own time. He said you were too fragile. He then agreed. He pushed for IVF with an anonymous donor. He signed the consent forms. You signed the consent forms." Emily's mind flashed back. The mountain of paperwork, Michael hovering over her. "It's just standard legal, honey. Just sign here and here. It's for the treatment." She had been so desperate, so hopeful. She would have signed anything. He knew it was a donor, Emily said, the realization landing like a physical weight on her chest. He knew all this time that this baby wasn't his, and he pretended. He pretended to be happy that we had finally done it. "Yes," Dr. Hanson said. He knew. The full, monstrous scope of his deception was clear. He hadn't just lied about an affair. He had lied about everything. He had faked his way through their entire infertility struggle to protect his own fragile ego. He had subjected his wife to unnecessary medical trauma to maintain his facade of masculinity. And then, the other lie. Camilla. Emily's eyes widened, a new, hysterical realization dawning. That's why she... Camilla. She said he promised her a baby. Michael froze. Oh my God, Emily breathed, a wild, sharp laugh bubbling in her throat. He was lying to her too. He was telling her we were trying, while he was telling me we were trying. But he knew. He knew he couldn't have a baby with anyone. He was promising her a future he could never deliver. He's nothing. And from the hallway, where the security guards were still trying to move a now limp Camilla, came a sound. It was a high-pitched, unearthly sound, a shriek of wild, hysterical, broken laughter. Camilla had heard it. She had heard all of it. Sterile? Her voice echoed down the corridor, a sound of pure, unadulterated madness. He's sterile. He was lying to me. He was lying to me the whole time. He promised me a family. You're nothing, Michael. You're a fraud. You have nothing. The screaming faded as she was finally dragged into the elevator. Michael Anderson didn't even turn. He was looking at his wife. The only person left in the world he hadn't. No, the person he had lied to the most. Emily Anderson looked at her husband, the stranger at the foot of her bed. The monitors beside her had gone quiet. Her blood pressure, which had been at stroke level, was stabilizing. The pain in her abdomen, while still there, was no longer the agonizing, burning tearing of an abruption. It was just the pain of labor, the truth, the horrible, devastating, catastrophic truth, had calmed her. The stress, the lie, had been the poison. She looked at Dr. Hanson, her eyes clear and cold for the first time in years. "Get him out," she said. "Emily, please," Michael whispered, his voice cracking. He took a step forward, his hand outstretched. "Baby, please, we can fix this. It's still us. It's our son." "It is not our son." Emily's voice was like ice. The vulnerable, scared woman from 10 minutes ago was gone, burned away by the acid of the truth. In her place was someone new, someone forged in the fire of his monumental betrayal. "It is my son. You are nothing to him. You are nothing to me." She looked at Dr. Hanson. Her eyes were hard. "Doctor, get him out of my room." "Michael," Dr. Hanson said, her voice leaving no room for argument. "Leave, or my security team, who are already on edge, will remove you, and I will file a police report for harassment and endangering a patient." Michael looked at Emily, his eyes desperately searching for a trace of the woman he had married, the woman he had so easily manipulated. He found nothing. He saw only a stranger, a woman who looked at him with a mixture of pity and pure, unadulterated contempt. The titan of private equity, the man who had built an empire on charm and ruthless calculation, had been dismantled in a hospital hallway by two women. His empire of lies, the one he'd built for his wife to keep her, and the one he'd built for his mistress to use her, had collapsed in on itself, and he was the only one left in the rubble. He turned, his shoulders slumped, his $5,000 suit looking like a cheap costume. He did not look at Dr. Hanson. He did not look at Nurse Patel. He walked out of room 712, a ghost. As the door clicked shut, Emily let out a breath she felt she had been holding for 7 years. The agonizing, chaotic beeping of her monitors had settled into a steady, rhythmic, manageable pace. Her blood pressure was still high, but it was no longer in the red. "Well," Dr. Hanson said, a small, grim smile touching her lips. It seems the truth is, in fact, the best medicine. Your blood pressure has dropped 20 points. I'm stunned. The abruption risk, it seems to have stabilized. Emily looked at her stomach, her hand resting on the swell. So, what now? Now, Dr. Hanson said, all business once more. We're still going to have this baby. But instead of a high-risk emergency crash C-section, I think we might have time to do this with an epidural. You might even be able to be awake to meet your son. Tears streamed down Emily's face, but for the first time, they weren't tears of sadness or fear or self-loathing. They were tears of release. My son, she whispered, testing the words. Just, my son. Nurse Patel, let's go, Dr. Hanson commanded, and the gurney was in motion. Let's go have a baby. 4 hours later, in the calm, bright light of an operating room, Emily Anderson gave birth to a healthy, 5-pound, 2-ounce baby boy. When they held him up over the curtain, his small, powerful cry filled the room. Emily, her heart bursting, held out her arms. He's beautiful, she wept, as they laid the small, wriggling bundle on her chest. Hello, my love. Hello. It's just you and me. Michael Anderson was not listed on the birth certificate. His name was barred from the maternity ward. When he tried to send a world's best flower arrangement, a towering monstrosity of white orchids and roses, Emily had Nurse Patel send it down to the nurses' station. The divorce was, by Greenwich standards, apocalyptic. Michael fought, of course. He tried to claim paternal rights, citing the IVF he had paid for. But the consent forms he had so arrogantly signed, the ones that clearly named him as the non-biological, intended parent and specified an anonymous donor, were his undoing. His lawyers were met with the full, unbridled fury of Dr. Lena Hanson, who provided a medical deposition so damning, so clearly outlining Michael's medical sterility and his campaign of psychological abuse that the judge summarily dismissed Michael's claim. Camilla Benson, it turned out, filed her own lawsuit against Michael for fraud, though it was quietly settled out of court. She disappeared from the firm and from New York, her reputation and her faith in charming men in tatters. Emily sold the cold minimalist mansion in Greenwich. She moved to the city, to an apartment filled with light and color. She named her son Leo because he was a fighter. He was her lion. She often thought about that day in the hospital, the day her world ended, the day the mistress, Camilla, had walked in, intending to destroy her, to take her husband and her child. But in a twist of fate, she could never have imagined that cruel, venomous woman had, in her hatred, accidentally given Emily the one thing she needed: the truth. She had brought the lies into the light, and in doing so, had set Emily free. The doctor, Dr. Hanson, had been the one to reveal whose baby it really was. It wasn't Michael's heir. It wasn't Camilla's stolen prize. It wasn't the product of a broken woman. It was just Leo, and he was, and always would be, hers. 4 years passed. The sterile, silent white of the Greenwich mansion was a distant memory, replaced by the warm, chaotic clutter of a 2-bedroom apartment on the Upper West Side. Sunlight streamed through the large windows, illuminating dust motes dancing in the air and reflecting off the framed, colorful finger paintings that served as the primary decor. The only silence was the companionable, focused quiet of a 4-year-old boy concentrating very, very hard on a tower of wooden blocks. Leo Anderson, he had kept the name, deciding it was hers to keep, not Michael's to soil, placed a final red cylinder on top of his creation. It wobbled, held for a breath, and then tumbled down in a clatter of wood on the hardwood floor. "Ah, bananas!" he shouted, a word he'd picked up from a cartoon. Emily looked up from her laptop, a small smile playing on her lips. Almost, my lion. That was your tallest one yet. It's not a tower, Mummy, he said, pushing his dark, curly hair out of his eyes. It's a hospital. For giraffes. Emily's smile widened, but her heart gave a familiar, gentle pang. The word hospital would always be a trigger, but it was no longer a wound. It was a scar, a silvery mark of a battle won. She had finished her degree online and now worked from home as a freelance financial consultant for non-profits, a world away from the cutthroat private equity that had consumed her former husband. A hospital for giraffes, huh? Is Dr. Hansen in charge? No, silly, Leo said, stacking the blocks again. I'm the doctor. Dr. Leo. He paused, a block in his hand, and looked at her with the sudden, unnerving seriousness of a child. Mummy, at daycare, Michael has a daddy, and Sarah has 2 daddies. Where's my daddy? Emily had been preparing for this question since the day he was born. She had replayed this conversation in her mind 1,000 times, vowing that her son's life would be built on the one thing her marriage had lacked: absolute, unshakable truth. She closed her laptop and slid off the couch to sit on the floor with him, pulling him into her lap. He smelled like apple juice and crayons. That's a really good question, sweetie, she began, stroking his hair. You know how all families look different? Like Michael's and Sarah's? He nodded, his cheek resting on her shoulder. Well, our family is a Mummy and Leo family, and that's all we need. But you're right, you did need a little help to get here. You know how Mummy wanted you so much, for so long. Like the whale in my book, he whispered. Exactly like the whale. I wanted you more than anything in the world. So I went to a very special doctor, Dr. Hansen, and she helped me. She used a little seed from me, and a little seed from a man who was a donor. A donor? Like when we give my old toys to the baby house. Emily laughed, a genuine free sound. Yes, exactly like that. He was a very kind man who gave a special gift, a tiny, tiny piece of him, so that mummies who wanted babies very, very much could have them. He gave that gift, and Dr. Hansen mixed it with my gift, and they put it safe inside me. And you started to grow. You grew in my belly from my love and a little bit of science and a very kind gift. Leo seemed to process this. So my daddy is a gift? In a way, yes. But he's not. He's not a daddy like Michael's daddy. He's not someone we know. He was just the man who helped. I'm your parent. I'm the one who gets to love you and read you stories and build giraffe hospitals. It's just you and me, kid. He hugged her neck tightly. Okay. I like you and me. I like you and me too, she whispered, burying her face in his hair, a wave of profound, overwhelming gratitude washing over her. She had seen Michael only once since the final court date. It was 6 months ago, on a rainy Tuesday. She had been rushing out of a coffee shop, pulling the hood of her raincoat up, when she saw him. He was standing on the opposite corner, under an awning, waiting for a car. The man who had once graced magazine covers looked diminished. He was still in an expensive suit, but it hung on him. His hair was thinner, and his face had a grey, haggard look that no amount of money could hide. The arrogance, the commanding presence that had once electrified rooms, was gone. He looked like what he was, an empty, deflated man, a fraud who had been exposed. His company, she'd heard, had suffered. The scandalous divorce had been public and brutal. Whispers of his instability, the mistress at the hospital, the accusations of fraud from Camilla, the clinical damning testimony from Dr. Hansen about his lies, had eroded the trust of his partners. He'd been forced to step down as CEO. He checked his watch, his expression impatient and sour. He hadn't seen her. Emily stood there for a long moment, the rain dripping off her hood. She waited to feel something, a spark of the old rage, a flicker of the 7 years of pain, a shadow of the humiliation. But there was nothing. It was like looking at a stranger, a vaguely familiar actor from a show she no longer watched. He was irrelevant. The black hole Dr. Hansen had described had collapsed in on itself. She had turned and walked away, disappearing into the crowd, her hand in her pocket, clutching a small plastic dinosaur Leo had insisted she bring for good luck. Now, on her apartment floor, with her son warm and heavy in her arms, Emily understood the true nature of her inheritance. Michael had been obsessed with his legacy, with his heir, with the Anderson name. He had destroyed lives to get it. But he had failed. The inheritance wasn't his name or his blood. The inheritance was the truth. The mistress, Camilla, in her blind rage, had been the catalyst for that truth. Dr. Hansen had been its voice. And Emily, she was its guardian. The baby, the one they had all fought over, the one whose very existence was a web of secrets and lies. It turned out his story was the simplest one of all. He was not Michael's heir. He was not a replacement child. He was not a bargaining chip. He was just Leo. He was her son. And his life, unlike hers had been, was built from the very first day on a foundation of pure, unshakable love. That, Emily knew, was the only legacy that ever mattered. The truth, when it finally comes out, is often more dramatic than any lie we can imagine. Emily walked into that hospital as a victim, a wife terrified of losing her husband and her baby. But she walked out as a survivor and a mother, freed by the very secret that was meant to keep her trapped. Michael Anderson built a prison of lies to protect his own ego. But in the end, he was the only one left serving a life sentence. What do you think of Emily's story? Have you ever seen someone's web of lies collapse so completely? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If this story moved you, please hit that like button. Share it with someone who needs to hear it. And don't forget to subscribe for more real-life drama and incredible stories of truth revealed. We'll see you in the next one.